kids to use it too. That's been a fun journey for me. So pre-COVID, about 43% of Americans were working from home sometime or part of the time, according to Gallup. So one of the things that a lot of us now have shifted into, if we're not essential workers, is working from home full-time. And what working from home full-time has done for many people is to reveal a lack of routines or habits, the relationships we have, whether they are working well or not. Who are the, thanks for the thumbs up, Jane, right? Looking at the boundaries we have with our physical space and the boundaries we have in our, between the different roles that we embody between work and home and parenting and looking after family. And also the issues we have around transitions, because we're not doing the physical transitions anymore to the extent that we were. So learning to transition between being a mother, being a partner, being a boss, being an employee, being an employer, being a leader, is also much more blurred. And what this really does is reveal where we are doing well and where we are struggling. So it really shines the spotlight. And that's something that I've really seen a massive shift in dialogue and conversation around in the last 7 weeks. So firstly, why habits? Why are habits so important, and why is this stuff bubbling up so much right now, particularly around the issues of self-care? So a habit is a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up, right? So habits in their title have like that little hint of the negative connotation, right? So habits consist of 3 parts: the cue, the thing that triggers the habit; the action, the actual habit itself; and the reward, what we get out of it. And what's interesting about habits is that most of our lives are habits, right? Over half of what we do every day at work is a habit. Over half of every daily activity is a habit. And really of concern right now, and interestingly for the upcoming speakers you have, 90% of our self-care behaviors are habits. And so when we're in a situation of high stress and we have really upped what's called our allostatic load, so the amount of stress that we're living under in a regular basis now, this issue of how good our habits are, whether they're serving us, and the routines and boundaries and transitions we have are really brought into the forefront. And so that's really what I want to touch on today. Does that make sense? Sound good? Yep. Woohoo. Woohoo. Yay. Give us some love. Fabulous. Okay. So the habits that I really want to look at are the key habits that I know from working with clients for a number of years are really, really important. And from what I've been following on social media and, you know, on LinkedIn and Facebook, have been really popping up in the last 7 weeks. So the first 3 are sleeping, eating, and exercising, right? How good are you at sleeping? And has your sleeping been massively impacted by what's going on? How good are you at maintaining healthy eating? Or are you going down the whole, like, you know, oh, pizza, order, because it's only been a few weeks, and then 3 weeks in, you're still doing crappy order or ordering out or like rubbish from the freezer and starting to feel like, oh, right? And exercising, right? Those 3 really basic habits are really, really vital for being well, feeling well, being productive, showing up in the roles you want to show up in the way that you want to show up. And one of the things, again, that being in this situation where all of these things have been challenged is, can you keep these things going? And are you putting into place practices now that once things go back to normal? And if they don't completely go back to normal, what can you learn from the changes you've made so that perhaps you decide, actually, I want to work from home more. I want to change these boundaries and routines I have. I want to change my relationships based on what I've experienced in the last 7 weeks and, you know, going forward. So I want to dive into that a little bit. So The one I'm going to start with first is sleep, because sleep is so vital. Pre-COVID, America was struggling with sleep. So before this pandemic situation, lack of sleep cost the US $411 billion annually. 35% of US adults, so 18 to 65-year-olds, were not getting a minimum of 7 hours sleep a night. And according to the CDC, 30% of the US population struggled with insomnia. So this is a real issue, right? Pre-COVID, people were struggling with this, and it's generally just gotten worse, right? 50 to 70 million Americans have a sleep disorder, and over 9 million Americans take a prescription pill for sleep disorders. And the one that really freaks me out is 38% of Americans fall asleep unintentionally every day. That means fall asleep without planning to. So these are people who might be driving a school bus, might be operating, something really vital in a factory that could, impact loads and amounts and safety and so on. So you really want to think about this. This is a chronic situation and it's only getting worse. So we really want to tackle sleep and make sleep a priority. So what is healthy sleep? Healthy sleep is sleeping between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. That is the window you really, really want to get to, because when you sleep in that time, there's a couple of things that are happening which are really, really important for you. And this is where I love when the East and the West come together. So in Ayurveda, the Indian science of medicine, which literally means the science of life, what we know is that between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., two really key things happen in your mind and your body. Your mind detoxes and processes your memories. It shifts your short-term memories to your long-term memory, and it digests your emotional experiences of the day. And also your gut is detoxed. So that's the Ayurvedic why you need to be sleeping between 10 and 2. The Western science that supports this: 1, your brain shrinks in this time zone, and the cerebrospinal fluid, which is the liquid that surrounds the brain, actually rises. These things only happen if you're asleep. If you are awake between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., those things are not happening. Your gut is not digesting, and your mind is not cleaning itself. You're not processing and digesting. Research on athletes too that came out of Harvard showed that this time window is also massive for muscle rebuild and healing. And 1 hour of sleep in that window is the equivalent of 2 hours at any other time, night or day. So getting asleep by 10 p.m. is really, really vital. What makes it hard for many people is that 10 p.m. energy is, in the Ayurvedic profile, is fire energy. And so many of us feel like we're like around 9:30, 10, we're like, oh, second wind. I'm going to write that book. I'm going to fold the laundry. I'm going to clean out the spice cabinet. I'm going to get on Twitter. Oh my God, where did 2 hours of my life go? Right? Because we feel that fire. But if we don't learn how to step away from that and allow that fire to go inwards, we're going to end up in a really difficult situation, which is not being well slept. And you want to be well slept, because when you are not well slept, you base it, your cognitive function, as if you are drunk. When you start sleeping less than 5 hours a night regularly, the way you behave is if you are drunk in terms of your reaction times and your ability to process information. Your risk of heart disease, coronary heart disease, COPD, diabetes, weight gain, all start to rise when you start sleeping less than 7 hours a night. It's a real issue. It also ages your skin and reduces your sex drive, So, I mean, it has massive negative effects through many different areas of your life. So prioritizing that is key. And one of the things that we're navigating right now is it's really easy not to, right? Just like, I'm just going to watch them and do this. Creating a routine around that is going to ground you. It's going to feel better. Anybody got any questions about sleep? Yep, Lauren?
What about people who tend to fall asleep a little bit earlier during the evening, and then they wake up around 4 o'clock and then their brain starts going again, and then they try to fall back to sleep for maybe another hour before it's 7 to, get up and go for their day?
So So a couple of things there. One is that you may not have created a pacifying routine at the end of the day. So you may have, not dimmed the lights. You may have exposed yourself to things like blue light, which reduces the melatonin production. So phones, computers, technology. You may also have eaten something which when you digest will spike your blood sugar and your insulin and wake you up. So that's one of the reasons why, if you find yourself waking up before you intend to, particularly in that kind of 1 to 4, 2 to 6 range, you want to look at your sugar consumption. So alcohol, sugar, chocolate, all of that kind of thing. Falling asleep before 10 is fine. And as long as you're getting 7 to 8 hours, the key really is you also want to wake up before dawn. Because when the light comes up in the morning, you then enter an energy that is heavy and thick. So even if you've had more than 7 or 8 hours sleep, you're going to find it harder to wake up if it's post-dawn. So that's part of the Ayurvedic profile too. That makes sense?
Could you also, yes, and could you also just real quickly about melatonin, if anybody takes melatonin, I started taking that since I've been home. I never had a problem sleeping before, but could you just...
Sure. So melatonin, you can elevate melatonin by going outside during the day and exposing your skin and your eyes to sunlight. You can boost melatonin by going outside at dusk as light is falling. You can also watch how you are inhibiting melatonin production. So TVs, computers, phones all produce blue light, which impacts the production of melatonin. 4 hours. It has an effect up to 4 hours. So if you are on devices at 6 p.m., your body will only start producing melatonin again around 10 p.m. So if you are struggling with that, I would boost it naturally, pacify it naturally. The thing about taking it orally in a chronic way, rather than say when you're jet lagged for a couple of days, is that your body will stop manufacturing it naturally. If you take it chronically, you take it every day for an extended period of time, the research is now starting to show that you're more likely to have a natural drop in your body's ability to make melatonin. All right, so that's sleep. The second really important thing is to look at your diet, right? So we really want to look at how we can cultivate a healthy diet, which we all know we need to eat less sugar, we need to eat less processed food, all of that kind of stuff. But one of the key things that in terms of cultivating the right kind of habits now that you can do is that if you are working from home, what you can start doing is bulk cooking and prepping and planning, because when you do that, you reduce the decision. When you reduce the decision, you create more time and energy, and you're less likely to reach for the crap, right? So again, with that pitta fire I was talking about from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., that same pitta fire is active between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So that's when we have the most, what we would say in the West, the most bile in our system, and we digest food the most effectively. So we want to be eating our biggest meal in the middle of the day and prepping our food out for the week. So for example, I'm a single parent of 3 kids. I've been trained the whole homeschooling thing, which I now call crisis schooling because the power of words, right? If I call it homeschooling, I'm like, ha. So I call it crisis schooling because that's what it is. I prep out the food for the week and I write it on a whiteboard. So I don't get 15 messages a day. What's for breakfast? What's for lunch? When are we eating? What's going on? And I have in the fridge stuff that they can make for breakfast and lunch themselves, whether it's cereal, whether it's pancake mix, fruit, all of that, smoothies, all ready to go. And we have a family dinner and they can look at the whiteboard and they know what family dinner is. And it's at 6 o'clock every night. We're all going to sit down and eat together. So doing stuff like that allows me then to step back and reduce the interruptions, which of course, is difficult with respect to the boundaries around our relationships, right? And allows me also to remove some of the mental load of finishing my work day and then going, what the hell am I going to cook, right? Because I've actively planned it out. So really get thoughtful about that. And again, with both the sleeping and with the eating, you want to think about what are the routines you have in place that have been working, and what are the routines that are clearly not working and that you need to make a shift around, right? What is not working there? And what kind of transitions can you make between them? It's one of the things that we're navigating right now is work at home and then life at home, right? So when you think about your sleeping and your eating and your exercising, are you creating healthy transitions between them, or are you trying to do them all at the same time? Are you being clear about your physical and your emotional boundaries between them? So one of the things that has been really, really important in this time, and is something that you can take from this and move forward, is to identify the roles that you're taking on, right? Say a wife, say a mother, say an employer, say an employee, say a colleague, say a friend, and look at your calendar and be very, very clear that when you are showing up in one role, you are showing up in that one role and trying not to do anything else. And that when you then leave that, you are transitioning, you are creating a routine, a habit of transition between those two. So for example, sleep. When you sleep, you sleep in your bedroom, you're not doing anything else in your bedroom. You're not trying to work in your bedroom. You're not trying to eat in your bedroom. You're not trying to teach your child how to log into the Google Classroom, in your bedroom, right? So you're creating a boundary around that, right? You're then creating a transition. I am getting up and starting my day. So maybe your commute was a drive to work. So maybe your commute now is I'm going to walk around the block and I'm going to put on a jacket and I'm going to brush my hair and I'm going to brush my teeth and I'm going to sit down at my desk. Whether you're working from home as the kitchen table, you're still creating clear transitional spaces between this is the time I'm sleeping, this is the time I'm eating, this is the role that I'm taking on. Does that make sense? Yeah? Awesome. So the three sort of basic habits that I want you to really embody: prioritize your sleep. Oh my goodness, my lovely, sleep is so key. Prioritize your eating, healthy eating, eating that is nourishing, because most of the serotonin we have is actually in our gut, not in our brain. Big Pharma wants us to think it's in our brain, but the majority of our serotonin is actually in our digestive tract, which is why what you put in your mouth is so key. What you eat is so key. And one little sort of thing to maybe think about here is when you eat, you are combining the external world with your internal world. So take it seriously, right? This is a serious thing. Do it with thought, do it with care, do it with intention, do it with reflection, do it without engaging in other activities, right? Where did this food come from? What is the journey? Somebody's asking about probiotics. Probiotics are great. Probiotics, if you can, I'm a big fan of prebiotics, so things that create the healthy gut flora. So things like sauerkraut and kimchi are great for that. No mindless eating, which has been hard this 8 weeks. Exactly, right? So watching that tendency to numb out, right? And use food, use social media, use Netflix as a numbing tool. So one of the things that can be really, really key here, and I'm going to get into a little bit in the last two habits that I want you to think about, is are you reflecting on your patterns, right? What are you finding yourself doing? And what do you notice about yourself, and what can you learn about that and make changes around? So baking, so ICF Cleveland, what is baking a mindful activity? Hell yes. And it actually made me really laugh to watch everybody going down the bread train in the first month of COVID. I was like, people intuitively know that this is a grounding activity. So in the Ayurvedic framework, it's kapha. Kapha is earth, water. Kapha is a heavy, grounding, nourishing energy. And that is exactly what baking is. Baking is a heavy, grounding, nourishing energy. And in a state of stress, we are in like a vata disturbance. It's when our mind is like anxiety. We don't know, we're uncertain. We don't know where we're going. We don't know how it's going to end. We don't know what's going to happen next. So, hey, Amy, I was wondering whether it might be you. So when we're in that space, we need things that like a weighted blanket, right? So we want to think about how can we, a warm bath, a bowl of soup, something that feels containing and safe. And baking is exactly that. So when I watched everyone, I was like, yes, people's natural intuition is rocking out there, right? So I really want you to think about sleeping, eating, exercising. I call them the healthy sex habits. Make sure you're sleeping well, make sure you're eating well, and also make sure you're exercising. I'm not going to go into exercising a lot because I know you all know you need to exercise. But make exercising a priority. Again, you'll sleep better, you'll eat better. These three all feed each other, right? The last two habits that I want to touch on are your relationship with yourself and your relationship with other people. So one of the keys with relationship with ourselves is that the research, again, is incredibly compelling about optimism, that sense of emotional vitality or enthusiasm, or do you feel hopeful, your ability to self-regulate, so manage your stress responses. All of those things have been shown to be connected with heart disease and heart attack. So if you can practice a positive relationship with yourself, learn how to cultivate gratitude, learn how to cultivate optimism, learn how to look for the good, look for the hopeful, engage, learn how to regulate, so have those intentional practices in place, it actually cuts the risk of coronary heart disease by a half, right? This again is really, really huge. The mind-body connection is really deep and really embedded. And so I really want you to take heart that this is really important stuff. Again, mindset. Is your mindset solid? As you're sitting here working from home and navigating your relationships, how much of your time are you spending in negative self-talk? Like, I'm really sorry, I don't know how to use Zoom. This is the first time I've ever used Zoom. I'm really sorry, like I'm pressing the wrong buttons, right? And going into apology mode, right? How much of the time are you going, oh my God, I'm putting on the COVID-19. I've eaten the third donut today. And I'm like trying to support the local restaurant, but I'm like, you know, right? How much of the time are you doing that versus loving yourself? Looking at what you're doing well, appreciating the things that you are committing to and following through on, right? So some of the practices to cultivate a relationship with yourself: meditate, 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 meditate. And did I say meditate? Meditate. I'm telling you, this is life-changing. Meditate. The second thing that's really important here with relationship with yourself is to do things that you love and that cultivate an intimate personal relationship with yourself. So doing a puzzle, reading a book, playing the piano, journaling, so you see what's in there and how it actually comes out. Often it's very, very different. And again, journaling has been shown to massively boost productivity and has also been shown to be really positive for managing stress responses. So in like PTSD studies, what comes out of the brain is often very different from what you think is stored in there. So creating practices, routines around your relationship with yourself. Are you committing on a daily basis to do things for you, right? Remember that 90% of our self-care habits, actions are habit, right? So are you spending time in negative self-thought? Are you spending time to journal? Are you spending time to meditate? Are you spending time cultivating things that bring you joy? Because again, these things are really, really important for your long-term well-being. And back to this issue of routines, boundaries, and transitions. Are you treating those appointments with yourself as importantly as you treat your commitments to other people? Because women have a tendency to downplay our commitment to ourselves and prioritize other needs over ourselves. So when you think about the things that fill your cup, right? Because you are the lighthouse and all of the roles you take on are the boats at your shore. And if you don't keep that lighthouse lit and fired up, all of those other boats are going to crash at your shore. So take it seriously. Take yourself and your commitment to yourself really, really seriously. And as you go through this period where a lot of this stuff is in much more relief, much more kind of in your face, notice, what is the thing that brings me joy, right? What are the things that help calm me? Is it going into the kitchen and baking some bread? Is it sitting there with a mantra coloring book? Is it going for a walk in nature with nobody else in my family? Is it, right? So look for those practices and cultivate them now and make sure that you keep those going post-COVID. The fifth habit, so sleeping, eating, exercising, which I call the sort of basic physical habits, although they're not really just purely physical, but for this way I'm laying it out today, it is. The fifth is your relationship with other people. So the other thing that COVID is really making clear is, are you in the right relationships? Are you enjoying spending time with the people that you are quarantined with? Who are you noticing that actually you wish you were spending more time with? Right? Smoking kills, we all know that, right? But actually social isolation also kills, and is in fact, the research shows, more dangerous than smoking in terms of the long-term effects. So think about this. Who are you spending time with? Do they stimulate you? Are they on the same path as you? Do they have the same goals and ethics as you? You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So who are those people? Are they on the same path as you? Or are they behaving in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable? So take some time again during this period to really cultivate your relationship with others. And again, think about the routines and the boundaries and the transitions here. Do you have routines in place of being around the people who fire you up? If not, why not make it happen? Do you need to create some boundaries around relationships with people who are no longer serving you and whose mindset drags you down and whose view of the world upsets you? Notice that and take action. And what can you do about transitioning between the different relationships you have, right? Can you make time for each of your children? Can you make time for each of your employees? Can you make one-on-one time for the people that are important so that you're not always bleeding them all together, and you can really cultivate that long-term intimacy, which is going to serve you and them well in the long term? So I'm just going to share my screen for my last slide, and please let me know if there is anything else that I have not shared or you have any other questions. And let me make this bigger. Oops. Oh, my mouse is losing its connection. There we go. Ah, no. So if you don't get my newsletter, you can text habit to the word 66866 to join my clan. And I also have a Facebook group called Force of Habit TA that you can join, which I go live into regularly. I'm doing a 5-day sleep challenge there right now. And all of those things are recorded and you can access it anytime. So if you're looking to build that community with me and you like more of what I do, you can find me there. I would also love to know if you guys have any more questions, but those key 5 habits: your sleeping, your eating, your exercising, your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with other people, are brought into clear relief right now. And I want you to dive into that, take advantage of it, see what you can learn, see what you can change, see what you can create for the future, because you have that radical power and you can make your life amazing.